Hey Lauren,
Hey,
how are you today?
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sex to me is a lot of things. However, mainly I think it's connection, intimacy, and trust.
Okay.
Sexual content was when I was very young, probably something on TV like probably a girl in a bikini. I guess that would be considered sexual content or something related to being nude. However, my first experience with sex, I was very young. I believe I was 11 years old. That was with another person. I do remember it, and actually, thinking back on it, it wasn't the best thing. It wasn't very nice, let's say.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. At the moment, sex is a tool for furthering a connection that I have with a person. I have a rule, let's say, that I don't get into bed with anybody that I don't feel mentally stimulated by. So I think it further enhances that mental stimulation, getting to know another person in another way physically. And yeah, at the moment I'm in a relationship, so it progresses our relationship in a physical way rather than just mental. Yeah.
What role has it played in the past in your past relationships?
Well, I've been single quite a lot for my life. I've only had a few long-term relationships. So in the past, sex was a form of me trying to validate my body and trying to get people to accept my body because I lived in a place where my body isn't accepted by society as a whole. Where I grew up at a time where I was told my body was unworthy of being loved. So for a long time, sex was trying to get people to love my body.
Follow-up question. Can you talk about how this changed for you or when this changed for you?
A lot of it was moving away from America, where people are so body centric and focused on what you look like, being X prototype or having X features, and these are what are considered likable or lovable by society. A second part was moving away from my family. They were unfortunately a bit toxic when it came to this because they perpetuated the societal ideal of what they thought a body should look like and constantly telling me I need to go on diets or I need to, lose weight. And then thirdly, just spending a lot of time by myself. Actually, oddly, lockdown during COVID, I was alone for 3 months, and not seeing so many people made me realize there's nothing wrong with me and myself every day looking at it like nobody else is sitting here, because we were also preoccupied with everything else going on in the world. Nobody was focusing on that. And so when I went out into the world, I didn't have to worry about my body. I could just be. And then coming home alone every day on top of it. Yeah, so those kind of three factors made it so I feel more comfortable. It's not 100%, but I feel much more comfortable in my skin.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that for
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Relationship.
Absolutely. I think we should all be able to talk about our traumas, our experiences, our desires, our wants, our needs, and everything should be on the table because I have a theory that if you don't ask for what you need, you'll never get it. Inconvenient, maybe. I think sometimes sex feels like an obligation. I feel like depending on who you're dating, where you're dating, what type of views are had on sex in the environment that you're in can really infiltrate your personal wants and desires. So I think the inconvenience would be that a lot of people don't understand what they want personally. They just go on what they see. So it's a lot of people don't have self-awareness. So I guess that would be the inconvenient part. It's like a lot of people just don't know what they want, or yeah, they don't know what they want, or they don't know how to express what they want, or are afraid to. So it makes it harder for people who do know what they want to get what they want. Well, technically, there's a biological function for sex. So that's its, I mean, I guess primary, original function. However, intimacy is kind of incorporating that act with a person that you feel connected to, that you can trust, that you can feel safe with, and you can express yourself in a different way. You can express yourself through bodily movements, through acts of sexual pleasure and desire. And I think a lot of intimacy comes with trust rather than sex is just an act. Um, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I have a really hard time articulating one point because I can see it from so many sides. I think of something like someone who does sex work, like maybe that act is purely casual for them because it's their job and that's how they view it. Whereas I think people who are trying to be romantic, things can't be casual because you're moving towards this other level of intimacy or this other level of connection that you want rather than just the sex itself. So I think when it's transactional, it can be casual because that's kind of the point. It's not meant to be connected. However, then I go into this other thought process of the fact that every person we sleep with, we kind of have this transfer. Like, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship where there's a penis and a vagina, there is when a man enters a woman or a penis enters a vagina, there's like this transfer of whatever they have going on and whatever you have going on. And as a woman, to kind of accept that as well, no matter if you want it to be casual or not, it can't be casual because there's something more in my soul that's taking whatever you have and bringing it into me. And I might not even know you that well. And that feels not very casual to me either. Even if I wanted it to be, it doesn't feel like it. So I kind of don't have a concrete answer, but I have those three thought processes every time I'm asked that question.
Is it?
Consent is very important. I think it's required. I saw something really fun, maybe not fun, but really helpful in a TV show just the other day. It's like we should all be going for happy yeses rather than hesitant yeses or even, skeptical yeses. So I think in general, it's extremely important. I think we should normalize more asking questions like, is this okay? Do you like this? Can I do this? I feel like a lot of times, especially when you're in a relationship, after you've already consented to having pretty regular sex with somebody, that people tend to forget to ask if they want to do anything new, especially, or if they even maybe you're just not feeling it that day, or they should just ask in general because, maybe I'm up for one thing but not another. And it can really change the whole dynamic of sex. So, but I think it's extremely important. And I think not enough people ask for consent in our daily lives, like, can I touch you, let alone in bed. So, absolutely. Um, because I have that rule of kind of feeling connected with someone already in an emotional aspect before getting in bed with them, I'm usually quite comfortable expressing any displeasure or things that I don't want, because the whole point for me of sex is to enjoy ourselves, is to have fun. That's the number one point. So if I'm not doing that, then I'm going to tell you. If that's not how it's going for me, then I'm going to tell you. And this is also why I wouldn't let someone in my bed that I don't feel safe with, because I know that there are some scenarios, if you start telling someone no, that you might not feel safe. And I'm like, well, you don't get to that point unless I know that if I tell you no, it won't be a problem. So yeah, I really don't have an issue with that anymore. And I haven't for a long time. I think every sexual encounter is different. I mean, I want to have fun, I want to enjoy myself, but I don't necessarily need to like orgasm every time, or I don't need my partner to orgasm every time. I don't think there's kind of this, there always needs to be a pretty little bow wrapped on sex. Like, okay, we've done this, we've accomplished XYZ, now we can say we've had sex. I don't think that's necessary. So for me, it's just having fun, having a good time, and enjoying each other. And if we get to a point of orgasm, great. If we don't, it's okay, as long as we had fun doing it. So I don't have an A to Z point. Ticked list that I would say I have to accomplish in a sexual encounter. Yeah.
Yeah, how did you deal with it?
So I think in the past, when I was really self-conscious about my body, I was always like, oh my God, what do I look like? And I was so focused on that maybe I wasn't involved or as involved with the act itself. I was out of my head, or I was expecting something else, or I was hoping they were expecting something else. And things can get a little, let's just say it just ends up not fun in the end, because I'm so anxious during the act. Dealing with it, I guess, unfortunately, maybe I don't think I dealt with it in the moment. Maybe there were a handful of times that I stopped because I was like, hey, I'm not mentally in this anymore, because this was a previous me. But at other times, I most likely just continued and kind of waited until, in my case, men finished, and then we continued on with our evening or whatever else was happening. So I didn't really deal with it at the time. It took other extrinsic factors and other self-healing before I could deal with it in the future.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I can really relate to that, because I've also been in those situations where you're like, you're in it, and you feel like if you bring it up that you're not comfortable, it destroys the whole mood, or you just feel some type of way about it. You're like, it's easier to just like go through with it than to like say something.
Absolutely.
About it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just kind of, especially in my case, like sleeping with men, they're much easier to kind of just, in my experience, get on with it and finish and be happy and call it a day. Whereas as a woman, there are more complicated factors for us to even get to orgasm or to be comfortable enough to get to that point. So yeah, that's, you kind of just like, okay, well, this will be over soon. Finish.
Yeah.
I would say I still worry about what I look like naked, even just from a personal perspective, when I'm naked in front of a mirror or whatever. I think I still have some anxiety regarding that, just because of my childhood, because of how I grew up. I think it'll be a lot of unlearning, if ever, to stop that feeling. But as far as during sex, not really anymore. Mostly because I sleep with men, and a lot of the times they're not even, they don't care. Like, as much as it took me so long to realize that, they don't care. They're like, we're here now, I'm happy. So once I kind of got that in my mind, I stopped worrying about what they think of me in general, I've really relaxed, so. Virginity is, to me, a social construct. Uh, it's, of course, something we all have, but I can be a virgin drunk. I can be a virgin artist. I can be a virgin roller coaster rider. It doesn't matter. If you've never done something, you are a virgin at it. So the fact that we also add that to sex when there's already so much pressure, as far as a lot of times religious pressure, societal pressure, I think it's kind of ridiculous that somebody else can take that from me because we don't view it the same way. It's not like someone takes my drinking virginity or someone takes my roller coaster riding or my artist virginity. It's just something that you've never done. So I think it's a complete social construct in order to gain power over women specifically. And there's so much to unpack there, but generally we do live in a patriarchal society and women have been controlled for so many less reasons. Virginity was just an added tool in order to make them either more valuable or more coveted to whomever wanted them or whoever wanted to control them, if you will. Yeah, so about waiting until marriage. At one point, because of my religious upbringing, I did want to wait, but I don't think it's necessary. I think everything is just in due time when you're comfortable, and that's all that matters. If you want to do it, but only if you want to do it internally, not from other pressure, or from pressure from others, rather. I will say it was discussed in the aspect of don't do it. It was discussed in the way that a lot of Christian religious families discuss it, which is wait, abstinence. We talked about it at school, and maybe I think I asked a few questions to my mom when I got home. She didn't have much to say. So we never ever talked about sex as pleasure or as sex as a connection of love. I never even remember like hearing my parents having sex or when they were only together until I was 12, but I don't remember any of that. And then all of a sudden, after I turned 18 or 19 and I had moved out of the house and would visit my mom, she would then all of a sudden start talking about sex because I was now an adult. And I was like, but this is so uncomfortable because you never talked about it when I was young. And now I can't sit here and talk about my experiences with you because this is not a safe place to do that. So yeah, the dialogue between me and my cousins and my peers in my family, we talked about it because we were all going through it together, right? Puberty, sex, love, all of those things. But with the adults in my family, absolutely not. I would say yes, especially when I look at my culture versus being here in Tanzania and the differences. I mean, in the West, we are considered much more free with sex, with our expression of it. If we look at music videos, if we look at songs, books, like 50 Shades of Grey became a huge hit because everybody's okay to go and watch that kind of film at the cinema. It's not taboo to do those things. There is still a lot of stigma. There are still a lot of problems surrounding sex, how it's used, especially in the religious aspect. But overall, I think people are much more free to talk about their sex, their sexuality, and their experiences where I'm from. So it's affected how I do that as well. I'm very open, I'm very blunt, and I don't really hold back in regards to talking about it. a stark contrast from what my family taught me to do or what my family didn't teach me to do. But as a society, you still kind of grow up hearing or talking about all of these things. So it ends up being okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though I'm not African, it's very similar in my culture as well. You see girls dancing on music videos, you see beer commercials with girls dripping in beer or whatever it is, and it very much exudes sexuality. And even a lot of jokes and things, when you go back and watch maybe films from 20, 25 years ago, stand-up comedy, these kinds of things, they're very sexual. And somehow you still get someone like me who grew up in a pretty religious family, but changed to non-religious, standard American family, and we're not talking about sex. It's still stigmatized, it's still taboo. So I can see the parallels between my upbringing and what happens here. I don't know enough maybe young people to, well, I say young people, like people going through puberty and the people who are most affected by sex or wanting sex and not knowing what to do with it. So it's hard for me to answer that question entirely, but I can definitely see a lot of parallels between my culture and this culture, because it's like, okay, it's okay to watch it, but you're not gonna do it. It's like, do as I say, not as I do, right? And that's always gonna cause problems or always gonna cause conflict. So yeah, I guess that's what I can say about that. Um, yes, especially from my part of the world. I think a lot of people are becoming, because with autonomy in other parts of life, like financial autonomy, being able to have similar jobs as other people, not having to rely on others to live your life, basically, in order to have basic functions like a home, income, food, etc. I think that has a lot of impact on feeling confident and feeling independent in yourself. So for women, definitely they're coming more and more into saying, I won't accept this anymore. I don't think this is right, or saying no and not being afraid of the consequences. However, I do think this is very subjective to location. I've noticed a huge difference being here in Tanzania. Uh, Maybe not with my friends, but I see maybe how women act around men in order to get what they want, or in order to, they're using their agency, not always to get what they want, but they're using their bodily agency in order to move forward, because the patriarchy is so oppressing here and they don't have much of a choice. So there are some aspects where if you're of a certain level, maybe in society, you're able to express your wants, your needs, your independence in sex. But if you're not, you still have to kind of move in this way that the only way you'll survive, or the only way that you'll maybe move up in society, is by acting a specific way. And that would probably mean not expressing your true wants or feelings about things. And I hope I'm not overgeneralizing, but I think I've talked about this a lot with a lot of my friends here, and everyone seems to kind of come to this consensus as well. And they don't always think about the majority of people who still maybe behave like this because of maybe economic or societal status. It really affects a lot. So if you have more autonomy in your society, if you're able to be more independent, then I think that goes hand in hand with being able to express or being able to follow through with your wants and needs in regards to so many things, not just sex.
Okay.
Like everything. But I'm sure that I might be echoing other people here, but just that sex it can be about pleasure. It's not just about making babies. It's not just to do something for your partner. Again, in my case, men. It's not just for the other person. Everybody can enjoy themselves, have fun, ask for what they want, get what they want, and just really have a blast with it. Like, sex does not have to be this crazy serious thing all the time. It can be goofy, it can be jokey, it can be really passionate, it can be really intimate, it can be so many things that so many people don't even think about. When you're taught about it, you're just like, okay, this is what it is. You're here to make a baby, right? That's between heterosexual people, that's what the point is. But there's whole entire relationships that can be built just in a bedroom, and things that you would never even know about or talk about with this person if you weren't in that scenario. So I just wish I had been taught there's so much more. No, they won't. Like, even after all of these years, you see this new generations coming in, Gen Z, Gen X, whoever it is, and they're also much more quote unquote woke than the previous generation. They still have inadequate sex education at school specifically. They're learning all of these things from the internet, from pornography, and actually someone just told me a statistic yesterday about here in Tanzania. Apparently, they did a survey of kids from the ages of 12 to 18, 500 boys. Something along the lines of 20% of them were using Viagra or something similar.
12 to 18-year-olds?
Yes, 12 to 18-year-olds. Because I had to ask for that figure twice. I said, these are children we're talking about, right? Secondary schoolers. And they say yes. And they're using this because that's what they see in pornography, or that's what they see out in the world, because they're not being educated that they don't need that. That is literally for people who have erectile dysfunction.
Exactly.
It's not for a young person, but because people in porn are using it, they think they need to. So, yeah.
That is horrifying.
Yeah. So if you think, like, I just heard this statistic yesterday, and it's from a woman who works at, what is it, PSI? I don't know. Somewhere. I didn't even get all the information, but I know what she does for work, and I trust her figure. I mean, I don't know why she would go around and spread that misinformation, because it sounds crazy, but it kind of makes sense. If you don't have the education, then you're going to do stuff like that. You're going to just do what you see. So pornography has a huge impact, and always has, on sex and our sexual culture. I think nowadays with the internet, there's a lot of bad porn. And by bad porn, I don't mean poorly made or like it's bad to watch or anything like that. I just mean that it gives this false impression of what sex is. There are these perfectly manicured people having this seemingly completely sexual or consensual sex, and that's not the reality of the porn industry. The majority of it is women being worked, 5-6 hours a day, which is overworking in this industry. They're maybe consenting to some things, but not to others. They're not getting paid very well. Their contracts are really shitty, if they even have them. It's really, it's a terrible industry. There are good porn sites that make ethical porn, but of course you have to pay for them. And that's an issue. People don't want to pay for porn. And you don't have to nowadays, so they don't. And this leads to 12 to 18-year-olds taking this supplement that they don't need. because maybe they're seeing that. And it leads to women shaving off all their body hair because that's all that men want, because that's what they see in porn, even though it's a completely natural thing to have body hair. It leads to what we feel we should look like because it's what we see these people in bed doing. And it has impacted me in the past. I personally, nowadays, I don't watch it. I feel weird watching it. I've watched a lot of documentaries about porn actresses and actors, porn industry, and I just don't want to involve myself in it. It makes me feel icky nowadays. So I wish the industry could be much more controlled and could be, really limited to what they could produce. And disclaimers, all these things, whatever needs to be done, but it needs a whole revamp, basically, because right now it's terrible for us.
Yeah. I know we're done, but I just wanted to say, I also went through that phase. Like I watched some documentaries on porn, and I was just like, this is messed up. But what I did, I don't know if this actually helps me avoid that. But so what I do is I watch I guess homosexual porn. Like I don't watch heterosexual porn because I always find it like a bit. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
But for some reason,
it almost looks like borderline rape most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't feel very comfortable with that. But like with, I guess, homosexual porn, whether it's women or men, it doesn't feel. At least for the videos I select, because I always like go through like a whole bunch of them. It feels better for me watching that.
Yeah.
Like, the heterosexual.
I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
And also a lot of people watch the amateur, like the ones that people upload themselves.
Yes,
so at least you know.
Exactly, that as well.
Yeah, that these people made it at home. They wanted to do this. They're probably together. They're probably in a consensual relationship. If not, they know each other well enough to make a pornographic video. So yeah, I know there are caveats to it, but overall, for me, I'm not like, I don't want to go out and find all that. I'm good.
Right?
I don't want to go do all that work.
All that work, yeah.
Yeah, I can go buy it. I know where to buy it if I want to buy ethical porn, and I would, and I have. But otherwise, I'm good.
Cool. Thank you so much,
No
Lauren.
problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.